For the last 15 days, I've gone on a walk and usually supplemented with some sort of like little exercises throughout the day or some stretching or something like that. And I'm feeling so much better. And I've been taking it slow because of, a lot of the residual issues from injury, which I've talked about before. And I'm just really noticing that I'm really starting to feel better. And then I was thinking about today, am I doing enough? This is a question that comes up so often for myself, for other people. There's a lot of comparison. There's a lot of all or nothing thinking, thinking that even if we're doing little bits, it's probably not worth it, right? And it's kind of unfortunate, really, because all little things, they all really do add up in some way or another. And I think that we tend to discount that a lot of times. And one of the greatest gifts I gave myself, after the accident, I was all messed up. But before that, I was following a lot of fitness people online. And I realized that I couldn't handle it. I realized that I couldn't see these people doing all this stuff that I probably wasn't going to be able to do for either a long time or potentially ever. So the biggest gift I gave myself was to just, anyone who made me feel any type of way, I unfollowed them. I unsubscribed. I did all of that, and I basically just Marie Kondoed all of my shit, right? And and if it was anybody that made me feel less than, or they weren't motivating to me, if it was somebody who they were just either just too far ahead or their whole approach to fitness wasn't really in alignment with what I was trying to do, then I nixed them. And at first I had a little bit of FOMO. I'm not gonna lie. At first I was like, oh man, what if I do miss some really cool stuff? But then I got to this point in which I realized that I was so happy shutting out the noise. I was so happy to just listen to myself, listen to my own body, listen to what I needed on every level, for my fitness, for my sleep, for my general health. And once I blocked out what other people had to say and what other people were doing and their progress, all of that, I was so much happier. And it really opened up so much space in my head to consider myself, consider what I needed. And that was really when a lot of progress for me happened, because then I could really tune in. I could really listen. And so when I think about, am I doing enough? Now whenever that question comes up, I always think to myself, how am I feeling? How's my sleep? How's my body? Is my body fatiguing kind of fast? Maybe I do need a rest. Maybe I am going a little too fast. Or is it the other way? Am I feeling a little more energy? Am I feeling a little bit better? Can I start pushing a little bit more now? And so having that kind of connection and having that kind of awareness of myself actually did more for me than finding motivation from other people and taking advice from other people online. I mean, even honestly, people that I knew in real life too, there would be a lot of people wanting to help and having like ideas and thoughts about things, and I had to block it out, But circling back to the all or nothing thinking and circling back to whether or not what you're doing is enough, so you have to start somewhere. You've got to start somewhere. Sometimes in order to continue, you need to change it up. What I would do is I would have to mix it up. I really craved variety all the time. And I found that if I was doing too much of the same type of exercise, like I love lifting weights and it's amazing for you. But I found that if I did that for too long without incorporating something else in there, I started to get bored, or I started to stall a little bit, like my heart just wasn't in it. And so like taking like little breaks or reducing the amount of days I would lift weights and then include something else just to add that variety, add that spice in, working on more balance, working on more mobility, working on, different exercises that also challenge the brain. That's something that I feel like is kind of underrated as well. Especially when we are I'm pretty multi-passionate. I like to mix things up. I have a hard time sticking. I want routine, but it's also really hard for me to stick with it. It's a really weird space to live in. If you're there, man, comment below because it's an interesting place to live. I mean, ultimately, all or nothing thinking doesn't really get us anywhere, right? Because if we have to be all in all the time, you've boxed yourself in already to a goal or a way of working out in which there's little room for error. And I think that us having like, I often hear it in nutrition, right? The 80-20 rule. And I really like that. And I think that that should also apply to fitness as well, because some days you're not going to, maybe some days you're just not going to feel well. Some days you may just need to recover. Some days you may just have life happening, and that's just kind of the way it goes, you know? So I think about a lot of times how to make it more approachable, how to make it more sustainable, because it's so easy to derail ourselves for some reason when it comes to health and fitness. I feel like that the biggest pain point is keeping it, just keeping going, really, is just keeping going. And sometimes starting, sometimes that's really hard too. And I'm honestly not the best at walking and talking. I do sometimes lose my train of thought. But I but I actually really enjoy these walks. I really enjoy thought dumping, you know, because I think about these things a lot. And I do think a lot about how health and fitness doesn't have to be hard, but we tend to make it harder on ourselves, especially when we're listening to people, or we're like, I would follow, different athletes, and that is so, athletes, come on, man, that they're not regular people. They're not regular people. And but if I watch them, like there's some that I do actually watch again now, and I do find like little elements of motivation or like just little tips in there that they use, because their lifestyle is so extreme that they actually have some really great tips that if you just tweak it a little bit, you can totally apply to yourself as a regular person. But overall, like, overall, we really just need to like pay attention to who we're paying attention to, who we're like, what content are we consuming, because that is quite a big deal. Like, I feel like there's a lot of content out there that tries to explain different topics and techniques within fitness, but at the same time, it kind of makes it feel more daunting. Does that resonate? How like there are some people who talk about fitness in this raw way, and it makes it feel that much more unattainable, that much more difficult to start and continue with. And I don't think it really needs to be that way. Oh, I didn't start my watch. Damn it. I actually want to talk about fitness trackers in in an upcoming video, because fitness trackers are kind of their own. That gets in your head too, man. I struggled there for a minute with like paying way too close attention to my numbers. So I wonder if we can get down. There's a spot in the river down here, but there's so many leaves on the ground, it might be kind of slippery. Maybe not. I love this little spot. It's just like this little trail that goes down to the river. It's like a side trail. I think it goes this way. Sorry, this is farther than I thought. Oh, we're almost there. We're almost there. Yeah, isn't that pretty? This area is really cool. I'm just gonna walk down here. Ugh. But yeah, you can see it. Looks like a good sitting log. I'm too short for the log. That's okay. Basically, I think that all or nothing thinking, and when we're asking ourselves, are we doing enough? I think one of the important questions really is, how are you feeling? How are you doing? Am I comparing myself to other people? Or is it more about the progress that you're making? Sometimes slow progress is kind of the way it is, and sometimes your body just needs that time to adjust. It needs that time to, adapt and improve, and things just aren't always going to be overnight. And I feel like especially on YouTube, there are, these 2-week shreds and like all these fast track, programs. And I think it's really a disservice because it's not always the way that it goes. And even if it does go that way, you got to maintain it, right? And so I think it gets a little bit sticky in there. That was very scientifically put. Okay, I guess ultimately just be kind to yourself. Listen to your body and play around. Play around with whatever it is and just see what happens. But for now, I'm just going to keep going on these walks for a little while, and then I think from there I'm going to start, incorporating more, and I'll share that as I go too. But the ultimate goal is to just not re-injure myself, and it's just to be able to keep going. I'd rather be able to do little bits every day than try to really push and then just trash myself, for a while. So it just seems way more counterproductive to what my body needs. And all this advice may be completely irrelevant because it really just depends on what your body needs, right? So listen to yourself. Take care. You got this. Thanks for coming along with me, and I'll see you tomorrow.